Hello and welcome to the JackCast, your Swansea City podcast. I'm your host, Steve Carroll. Joining us this week, first time for a little while, but always a pleasure, is my good friend John Russ. Evening, John.
Evening. Thanks for having me back.
Pleasure as always. So we've got two home games to discuss. Obviously, we've got a game then the weekend away to Hull, and then just general Swans chit chat really around potential. Are we going to get any transfers in or anything like that, really? But yeah, we'll start with the Birmingham game, I think, John. Really positive performance, I would say, before we get into it properly. But ultimately frustrating that we didn't win because we were easily the better team, really, and we should have had 3 points from that, shouldn't we?
Yeah, it was frustrating, but at the same time, if this is going to sound weird, it was nice to be frustrated because we should have won, not because we've stunk the place out. If there's any logic to that, like I'm a performance first type of person. If we're going to play like that consistently, we're going to get results. So it was annoying leaving the stadium, but it was such an encouraging performance, particularly in the first half, that I felt, okay, there's a standard here. And if we hit this standard, then we're going to be absolutely fine and we can be excited about the future. And it's only one game, I know. Um, but that was kind of the conflicting feeling I had leaving, particularly the chances we created. Like we should have scored, quite easily could have scored 3 or 4, which has been rare for us this season. Same result that we had at Southampton away, but obviously completely different feeling leaving the game on what we actually deserved.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best way of looking at it, isn't it? Is that at Southampton, we're probably all thinking, well, you take a point before the game, but how we got it and the way that we played was awful. And you felt like literally the point was the only positive, and we only got it because our goalkeeper made a load of saves and because the opposition were missing a lot of chances. Whereas this time we feel like if we play like that most weeks, then generally the result will follow. So it's as much as it's frustrating on the day, it's the positive signs for the future. Whereas when you have a game like Southampton, you're thinking, well, if that's what we're about and that's how we're going to play, then generally there's not going to be results, there's not going to be performances, and there's not going to be positives really. So I do completely see what you mean, and that is the way that we have to try and look at it. I think, although on the day it was quite frustrating, but looking at the goal that we scored, I mean, it was a bit of a strange one, really, because I think it was a Ronaldo mistake from what I remember. Timon then gets to the ball first, quite an aggressive pass towards Franco, who's probably not the favourite for the ball, but he gets there first and then puts a great ball across the box. And Vipotnik, in the form that he's been like this season, obviously has got there first. And all it needed really was a good connection, and you always know it's a likely chance of scoring. But it was a really good goal, wasn't it? And I think we've probably bemoaned a lot this season, not creating a lot of chances, but for a striker, that was a good chance. And generally, Vipotnik has been taking them, hasn't he?
Yeah, well, Franco was imperious in that game. It was his best performance for a long while. Maybe Oxford away when he came off the bench. So he just seemed to be first to everything. He almost created a second goal. I haven't watched it back, but I think he won a challenge in midfield who intercepted a pass in a kind of similar way. That was the one he played to Ronaldo, who then blasted it over when he should have cut it across the goal for Vip to score. But yeah, that type of chance is the chance we've been missing, and it's remarkable that Vipotnik has scored so many goals because we just don't create those type of opportunities for him. And he is going to take them all day long. And that was the good thing about the game is the clear cut chances. Ronaldo, I would say his one that hit the bar is a clear cut chance. I know it was kind of from a set piece. Collins, I think he was a little bit unlucky to hit the bar. I think he hit the bar or the post, but that was a good header. But these are high value chances that on this year we just weren't creating. And I think I saw a stat. Well, I did see a stat on Twitter in the week that I think St. Marcus has come in with third for volume of shots taken per game. Now, volume of shots can be a bit of a dud stat if you're just blasting everything from 30 yards. But at least it does show we are getting the ball forward more. We are getting in the box more, and we are at least getting in those positions where we can create more chances, and that's what we need. We need those high value opportunities. So that was a weird goal in a way, but the type of chance that we need to create.
Yeah, definitely. As you say, those were good chances. Ronaldo really should have scored from such close range. I think Cullen was unlucky, as you say. Obviously, Franco was unlucky as well with the one that he hit the bar. I mean, you don't get many games where you have three, you hit the woodwork three times, do. So it shows we have, within reason, we've done good things, but we've not quite been able to get the points from it. But as you say, it is encouraging signs. And under Sheehan, as we said before, we were bottom for most of these metrics, weren't we? Like shots, high quality chances, touches in the opposition box, all these things. And it does feel like that has now changed, doesn't it, for the better? And it does bode well for the future, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think on the flip side of that, we've also improved defensively. I feel sometimes this gets lost a bit because we were so poor going forward, and I think people kind of want to focus on that naturally. So, if we think back to the last couple of games of Sheehan, and even that, the West Brom away game, I think that was Matt. That's his second game. You can't blame him for it. He'd only just walked through the door. I mean, we looked like we could concede 10. And now, the Millwall game being an exception, but I think there's reasons for that. You can't do it every week. It does. We're not giving up the chances that we were. So don't get me wrong. I think there's obviously still improvements to be made, and we can still be better on the ball, and we can continue to improve. But from where we were, when he took over, I do think he deserves an immense amount of credit. I did get into some very, very good debates on Twitter last night about, I think some people saying that, we're a bit wasteful in possession, we're giving it away too easily. It's all based off counter pressing. I think those are fair points, but we can't lose sight of the context in which Matos came in. And we were doing nothing well. We couldn't defend, we couldn't go forward or create chances. The team had absolutely no identity. The confidence was on the floor. I think to get to this point this quickly, he deserves massive credit. And the rest of it, progress isn't linear. It might take until into next season. I think we just need to remember that context. We were in a really, really difficult position. But the Burnham game, I think, if I had to pick, was probably the best performance I think we've had since he came in, particularly that first half. We were very, very good at Oxford. But this game at home, it did feel like, a major step forward.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that it has to be the best we've played. I think we did fade in the second half. Probably did have something to do with the subs as well, but we don't have the strongest of squads. I think we've got numbers now, but some of the players are probably not as good as the other ones that have come on, really. So that didn't help, but it was really positive signs. And as you say, I mean, you look back to after that West Brom away game, I think probably everybody was very worried about relegation at that point. And we're now, we're only, it's not even 2 months later. And I would say very, very few people now are talking about us potentially going down. So it really does show the turnaround that we've had. And I mean, as you say, I think that there's bound to be bumps in the road. There'll be tougher games to come. We have had some fixtures that have been favourable, it's fair to say, but you still have to win them. And we were not doing that under the previous manager, really. But it was all positive signs, but it was disappointing to let the game slip as well, wasn't it? Because as we've said, we should have finished it off, and unfortunately, Patrick Roberts popped up with an equaliser, didn't he?
Yeah, I think with the subs, right, just to focus on that, a bit of criticism online about the substitutions, and that they definitely didn't work. But I think I'm not sure that the decision to make those subs was wrong at the time. So when you're playing this style of aggressive counter pressing football, it is very difficult for the players to go 90 minutes. Some players can do it, other players can't. So we suffered massively when Vidal and Vipotnik went off. Vidal, I think, at the moment is a key player out of possession. He's been pretty good in possession too. But I would say what we're doing without the ball, he's crucial. And obviously the drop from Vipotnik, with all due respect to Cullen, I think is significant. But I think we have to keep in mind that it's difficult for these players to play at that intensity for 90 minutes. And when there's a 3 game week, you kind of have to think about the whole week, especially because we don't have the strength and depth. If we had Ida fit, for example, and we know that we can start him on Tuesday, then I'm sure Vipotnik would have played 90 minutes against Birmingham. And also with Vidal, Yakue, I thought he was really good in that Christmas period coming on, starting. He hasn't done as well in the last 2 games. So there was a bit of a drop off that maybe we weren't expecting. So it was frustrating and the subs didn't work, but I'm not as critical for the decision to make them because of those reasons.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I mean, as you say, it's very difficult to keep that intensity up for the whole game generally, and that's probably even without the fact that it was a 3 game week. So I suppose what it just highlights is that our depth isn't what we're maybe, it's not at the level that we're looking for at this stage. But I mean, the fact is, I think if the subs hadn't been made, then there would have had to have been more changes for the Blackburn game, and then that impacts you as well. So it's a bit of a balance, I think, isn't it? But if we look ahead now to the Blackburn game, obviously that was last night. We're recording on Wednesday. Vipotnik again, really, he's opened the scoring early on. He just seems to be in the right place at the right time. I mean, the type of thing that wasn't happening last year. But I think the frustrating thing was we were very comfortable, and then we did let the opposition back in with a soft goal, really, didn't we? Which was disappointing. I mean, from what I can remember of it, Galbraith really, he was in a bit of trouble, and I think he probably should have passed the ball back to Vigouroux, which he didn't do. And then when he's been robbed, obviously it has then led to the goal. I mean, I'm not being too critical here of Galbraith. It's just a general mistake. These things happen. He's played a hell of a lot of minutes this season. And everybody does make the odd mistake, but it does feel sometimes as if we can let teams back in, doesn't it? And that was frustrating on this occasion.
Yeah, again, I thought the first half an hour or so was really good. Maybe not as good as Saturday, but still a positive performance. And you're thinking this is going to be a comfortable win. And we can see the stupidest goal ever. It did seem to throw us off. We just never really, I thought, regained the way we played in the first half an hour, if that makes sense. We were just really sloppy. Even in the second half, where I thought I think we were better than Blackburn, and obviously we got a couple of goals, but I don't think we ever quite hit those heights. And I just, again, bringing back in the context of where we took over, maybe some of those mentality issues that we saw earlier in the season where we kind of go to pieces when we concede a goal are still there a little bit. Not as bad because we didn't cave, we won the game and that's a good thing. But this is what I mean about these things can take a little while to fully turn around. I also feel sometimes like we get a goal early in the second half. We had a big game on Saturday. We got another one coming up. Subconsciously, you're thinking about that. Pitch is a bit heavy. Whether we did kind of take our foot off the pedal a little bit, not on purpose, which maybe affected our performance. And again, I think the subs, with all due respect to the lads coming on, the team that finishes that game is nowhere near as good as the team that started it. So these things have an effect. And I like Mattis's interview afterwards, where he was very honest in saying, we didn't really play well. We had to manage the game and we got it done, which you have to do. So that's a good thing. And 4 points from these 2 games, I think, was it 5 wins and 1 draw from the last 6 at home? That's really good. And they're not all going to be, pretty amazing football for 90 minutes, which sometimes I think our fans expect. I think some people do feel like that's going to happen. It's just not realistic. But it was good that we got it done after that, shambles of a goal, really, that we conceded.
Yeah, it definitely was. I mean, as you say, we weren't as good as we were against Birmingham, and I mean, it's a funny old game sometimes, isn't it? Whereas in the game, we've had 4 points, which we all would have taken, I think, but they've come sort of the wrong way around. We've probably got we've won the game where we weren't as good in. Although I'd probably still say we did deserve to win, but the game that we really deserved to win, we didn't win. But I think we all would have been fairly happy with 4 points from these 2 games. So we can take that into now the next games really. Obviously we're going to have a couple of trickier away days. So, I mean, what do you make of like how we are like set up at the moment? I mean, we have got a bit of an issue out wide, haven't we, from my point of view, because obviously Anusa now was injured. We don't know what the score is there. Benson is deemed surplus to requirements. I mean, we can't really have Ronaldo and Eon playing every single game. We've got a bit of a dilemma, really, haven't we? I mean, do you think we could play other people there? I mean, from my point of view, I thought Timon could have moved further forward potentially earlier in the season because he's the player with the best delivery in the squad. And I don't think Samuel Smith is a bad player to come in at left back either. There's what else could we do? I mean, Josh Keep seemed to put a good ball in the FA Cup game. Could he go further forward? Could we recall Cameron Congreve or Carell Wilson? I mean, are they the type of things we can do if we don't dip into the transfer market, do you think?
There's definitely options there. Probably uh, they're all probably not great options with respect to those players. I mean, Cooper came on yesterday. He did do some nice things, and then he lost the ball a couple of times. And I think Cooper, to me, is a decent squad player in the championship rather than a starter. Especially if you want to see out the result. I I doubt he's going to trust Sam Parker, who could possibly play on the wing. I think has done before. I'm not a big fan of out and out fullbacks playing as wide players. Tynham would definitely be the best kind of version of that because of how good he is going forward. But I'm not convinced about Josh Kay. I know he had that good moment when he come on. So out of all those options, I'd say recalling Congreve might be the best one. But he's playing every week up there and he's doing really well. We got to think about his development too. So I just really hope we can get somebody in. I think that's the optimal option here. Eam's played so much better, but it's quite clear that he's not going to play more than 60 minutes a game. Feels like that he hasn't quite got the energy levels to go 90 like Ronaldo can. So hopefully Anusa's injury isn't too bad. But I definitely think we need to sign someone because again, this is just my view in it. This type of football, this counter press and aggressive kind of. I always associate it as being German football, which probably is a bit wrong. It always feels to be in a 4-3-3 shape with out and out wingers. So I don't know if we could look at a change of shape, but I'm sure the number one option will be let's get another wide player in so we can, we don't have to do that and we don't have to play people, a little bit out of position or totally out of position.
Yeah, I think that would definitely be the preference. But it was interesting there you mentioned about a change of shape because, I mean, if you look at our team from the point of view of like strength and depth, I mean, there can be no doubt that the centre of midfield has got to be our strongest position. I mean, you look at Stamenic and Franco and Yalkue and Waddell, even Fulton has been better recently. We do have options there. I mean, could we go to a diamond? I mean, I'm not sure the manager will do it, but I mean, you could look at it then as well. Vipotnik obviously would still play. Cullen did do quite well when we played a diamond under Russell Martin. He was up front with Perot. Definitely think he's better in that than playing as a lone front man. And I mean, there's obviously Bobby Wales as well. I mean, we would maybe have the issues then of in terms of fullbacks, but Timon would still be able to potentially provide. And obviously Galbraith, if he was playing right back or if he was to go back into midfield, then there's him to create as well. I mean, it does feel like it could be an option to me, but I'm not sure we're going to do it.
Yeah, I'm not expecting it. Like I said, I think Matas is very much going to be a 4-3-3 man, but don't disagree with that. I think that time when Russ played it, we won a lot of games, and it was a very similar kind of makeup in the squad where we seemed to have a lot of central midfield players and not a lot of quality out wide. And I think it's probably the best role that Cullen's got from the start to play up front alongside somebody else. I'm not a big fan of him in these midfield roles. I think he loses the ball too easily. Yes, he offers a really good goal threat, particularly in and around the penalty area. And then when he's playing up front by himself, he hasn't got the physical presence to me to do that. So kind of probably bring the best out of him. And the midfield options, yes. I mean, we've just got so many of them. And I could see it being very effective if you've got Vidal maybe leading the press from the front and then take your pick from everybody else. But I'm not expecting to see that. But it could be an option. I'd much rather do that than go to, three at the back and wing backs, for example, which would be the other kind of idea. But I don't think we got the centre halves to do that. I think Joel Ward playing in a back three with Cabango and Burgess might be the slowest back three ever put out in the championship. So that doesn't feel like a good idea to me.
Yeah, that was one other thing I was going to come to. I mean, we've talked about hopefully a wide man coming in. I mean, I think we need a centre after me. I mean, there's still talk of Santos potentially leaving. Casey has gone back to West Ham, which is a bit of a shame, and now gone to Leyton Orient. We probably need somebody in there, don't we, just to cover us, because there's still a lot of games left, a lot of 3-game weeks. I mean, injuries, suspensions will bite, potentially even losses of form. I mean, it does feel like we need to get a reinforcement at centre back as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, it killed us last year, didn't it? When we had to play full backs in there. I really don't want to have to do that. It's nice to have Ward there. I know his fitness, might be a question. But with all due respect to Ricardo Santos, I'm not convinced he's a championship quality player. So I think a loan for me, similar to Casey, even if it's a first loan, somebody who's willing to come down for a few months. It's tricky when you've got Cabango and Burgess being kind of the captain, the vice captain, seem like they're the most vocal players we've got in the dressing room. They're going to play. But I definitely think that type of loan, just to have an extra option, would be extremely useful. I don't want to see Josh Key playing centre half again, which he did, I think, towards the end of a couple of games last season. It wasn't good.
Yeah, I think we had Cyrus Christie playing in there a couple of times as well, didn't we? And just, you're asking players that probably in their heyday were not going to do a great job in there, and then when they're on the slide as well, it's you are asking for trouble. But no, hopefully someone will come in there, because I think if we don't, we are asking for trouble. I mean, do you foresee any bids for Vipotnik? I mean, he is now the top scorer in the division. I mean, 13 doesn't seem like a huge amount for a top scorer. I mean, it does feel as if there's maybe not so many hugely prolific strikers out there at the moment. But before a ball was kicked, we probably didn't think he would get 13 in total. So obviously we're delighted with it. I mean, but do you think he could go in this window? My instinct is that he probably won't, but he might in the summer. But obviously we can't really sell him, can we? Because we would be in big trouble.
Yeah, it's difficult to see that happening. We'd have to replace him. The January window is just not a great window to be doing that in for so many reasons. So I think it would be a summer thing. I'd be surprised if he's here beyond the summer. That's the nature of football. And, I think his seasons, scoring 13 at this stage in the championship is always impressive. But I think doing it for us, considering how poor we've been, for a large part of it, in creating clear-cut chances, he single-handedly kept us out of the relegation zone. I don't think it's a stretch to say that. So I think we'll get a lot of interest. I think this type of season, his age and profile does feel like it could be quite a high transfer fee, but I still struggle to work out exactly what that is. I don't know if you've got any feelings on, if he was to go even now or in the summer, how much would that fee be? What do you think? What do you think that we could get for him?
It's a great question. Sometimes it depends on the market. It does feel as if, though, these days strikers are harder to buy. So, I mean, that should help us a little bit. But I also feel as well as if the fees that were around probably pre-COVID in our division, they're not really there like they used to be. I mean, we saw McBurney for 20 million, didn't we? I think that was the year before COVID. I mean, you wouldn't get that now for a similar type of player, I don't think. I mean, what did we get for Perot? 10 to 12? So we'd certainly be looking upwards of 10. We'd be hoping for 15, I suppose, but sometimes it just depends, doesn't it, on who's out there looking and what the money is. I mean, I guess the other question we have to ask ourselves is where would he go? Or what type of club is he going to go to? Would he go abroad maybe? I don't see a top, an established Prem team really buying him. I think the more likely option would be a parachute team, maybe somebody that comes down like a Wolves or something like that. Or if someone this year now goes up. I mean, Ipswich bought a lot of players from the Championship when they went up before. So if they go up, maybe would Coventry do it if they go up? Again, that could be a possibility. So I mean, those clubs will have money, but they won't have crazy money either, will they?
Yeah, those are the type of clubs I think would be most likely for him. His all-round game has improved. It's not just the finishing. He's definitely having more touches. He's more involved in the game. I certainly since Matos has come in, it feels like 2 or 3 times he kind of flips a one-touch pass to somebody wide and opens the game up. Obviously, he's physical. Um, I obviously love the guy. I'm not convinced about him at Premier League level. I hope I'm wrong for his sake. So if I was him, I'd maybe look abroad, possibly to a not to say a slower paced league, but La Liga maybe or one of those type of foreign leagues. But I do think that there's going to be interest, right? Like I said, I think it's more likely going to be the summer. But I would be surprised. And we got to remember, we signed this guy for free. He kind of fell into our lap because of what happened at Bordeaux. So from a PSR point of view, it's going to be a much more effective sale. I don't think I'll ever truly grasp how PSR works. But if we signed a player for free and then we're selling him for what, 10 to 15 million, that's a very, very good deal for us, especially looking at the spend that we've had last summer, and this is our model, right? We sign a player and we sell him for a huge profit. So it would be working very effectively. It'd be interesting to see what we did next season then. If that happens, are we going to ride with, Edo, Wales and Cullen as our forwards, or would we have somebody else? I'd probably thinking too far ahead. So I hope he's with us for the rest of the season, but it just feels like the type of player in this type of form that, beyond the summer, it's going to be really tricky to keep
Yeah,
him here.
you would think so, wouldn't you? I mean, it generally feels as if strikers in this division that have good seasons, if they're not with a team that wins promotion, then the vultures usually start sniffing. So yeah, I think it's fairly likely that he could be on his bike. But look, if he carries on doing well for the rest of the season and then we get a good fee, that's the nature of the beast. I would much rather that than some of the strikers that we've been lumbered with in recent years that then we've been unable to shift. And yeah, you would always rather this type of thing, although, of course, it is frustrating when you're trying to build a winning team. But so looking ahead then to Saturday, a trip to Hull, a very frustrating game really earlier in the season where they've equalised with the last kick. Bit of a funny one, aren't they, Hull? I mean, they're doing well in the league, but the general data suggests they're maybe not as good as what the table suggests. So maybe we're waiting for it to catch up with them a bit, but hasn't happened a huge amount yet, has it?
No, I think very good going forward, but maybe not the best defensive team in the league. But they do continue to pick up results. It's just one of those. I'm thinking in the summer, the type of manager that they got in, it was very difficult to know what to expect from them. I thought they were good down here in the second half, even though they equalised right at the death. They deserved that equaliser, to give them credit. The only other time I've watched them this season, they played Wrexham at home. I think maybe in a midweek game, it was on Sky, and they dominated that game. They thoroughly deserved to win it. So it's a really tricky game. It's an interesting one for me because if I look at the hardest games we've had in the Matos, I'd probably put the Stoke and Coventry away games in there. If I take Millwall out, where I guess that was the hardest game. I mean, they battered us. But at Coventry and Stoke, we played very well. I feel like we probably deserved something from those games, particularly the Coventry game. The Millwall one, I think there was some circumstances playing into it. Obviously, we had to leave Timon and Stamnich out. It was, the last game of the Christmas period. I know it's the same for Millwall, but I think what we have to remember is, we're not quite ready, I don't think, for that type of rotation. Millwall a little bit more settled. Also, they play very direct football. So in terms of energy levels needed to play over a Christmas period, I think, let's say it was easier for them, but they were maybe a little bit fresher to play that game at home than we were, and then there's the mental side of the game as well. But so it's an interesting game because of course I want a result, but again, similar to Coventry and Stoke, I'd like to see us kind of maintain these performance levels where we are competitive in these games. and we do make it really difficult. We do create chances. I think we got Watford the week after, which is again a similar looking fixture. But I do feel good about them. I hope I'm not jinxing us here, but I do feel like we can get something from at least one of the next two.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It does feel like these are quite tricky games, but at the same time, we are playing far better. And you're right to reference those couple of away games there that we lost at Stoke and Coventry, because we did play really well in them. And generally, you think if you take that type of performance on the road, then you'd like to think that you will get results. So hasn't really happened yet for us in a few games. And obviously Millwall, we were really bad in the first half. I mean, but we did perk up after the break at least, even though we still lost. But yeah, I am hopeful. I think that Hull, it will be challenging. I'm not sure we're going to keep a clean sheet up there, but can get a result. And then you look at, obviously we'll have Watford the week after, and that'll be tough as well. But I didn't think they were great earlier in the season. So, I mean, what do you think the target is for us from these games? I mean, we'd be delighted to win one, wouldn't we? Even if we lost the other, I think. But suppose we'd probably take 2 draws as well, wouldn't we? To just keep some momentum going as well.
Yeah, I think 2 draws would be fine. I think winning one of these games would be great. I think it kind of would be a next step for us. I know we did get the away win at Oxford, but they're obviously one of the teams that are struggling. It was still a big win. So to get a kind of more of a statement win against a team in the top 6 feels like a good step for us. Just to come back to the Millwall game and set, where you mentioned that we made a game of it in the second half. It feels difficult and strange maybe to say it at the time, because we didn't deserve anything from the game and we got battered. But again, that was a small step forward for us, that we did come out in the second half and make a real game of it. Not convinced we would have done that 2 months ago. It feels like we would have lost 3 or 4-0. Instead, we did come back into it. So all these things are small steps. So yeah, the performances really matter, I think, at this stage. But of course, we want to get some results. So 2 points, 1 win out of the 2 would be great.
Yeah, fingers crossed. That's but the main thing is, even if we don't and we see good performances, if they don't lead to results at this stage, then there will still be positives to take, and that's the main thing, because we are really very much in mid-table. It doesn't feel like we're going to go down. I think there's too much to do for the playoffs unless we go on some sort of a run, which would probably involve maybe 4 points from these 2 games, for example. But it's all positive signs, which is the main thing. So we weren't saying that much recently, certainly a couple of months ago. So, let's hope we can keep some momentum going. But that's it for this week. Another short one that wrapped up quickly. Big thanks to John for joining me. And we'll be back next week, hopefully with some more positive news, maybe a signing or 2, and then we will look ahead to that Watford game. So thanks for joining us, and bye for now.